It's 8 p.m. in Banjul, and this is GRTS News, broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. Our top stories this hour. President Adama Barrow reshuffles his cabinet, appoints former Higher Education Minister Badara Diouf as Vice President, replacing Dr. Aissatou Toure. Enhancing health service delivery, the Ministry of Health inaugurates the Board of Directors of the National Health Insurance Scheme Authority. The Transitional Justice Working Group on Thursday presents the shadow white paper recommendations on the TRRC report to the Attorney General and Minister for Justice. In the internationals, Bill Gates says the world needs to prepare for the next pandemic, and war in Ukraine exacerbates global hunger as the two countries are major suppliers of wheat and cooking oil. Well, that's the top of the news and much more coming ahead with me, Rohibite Duste. It's great to have you here. We begin this bulletin with cabinet reshuffle by His Excellency President Adama Barrow following the December 2021 presidential election and the National Assembly elections in April. His Excellency the President of the Republic, Adama Barrow, has constituted a new cabinet to run the affairs of the state. The changes include the restructuring of several key ministries. For a complete list of the changes, here is the government spokesperson, Mr. Ibrahim G. Sankari.
President Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, acting under Section 70, subsection 3, and Section 71, subsection 3 of the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia, is pleased to make the following appointments to his cabinet with effect from Wednesday, 4th of May, 2022. 1. Vice President, Mr. Aliu Badara Diouf. 2. Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Mr. Dauda A. Jallo. 3. Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, and Gambians Abroad, Dr. Mamadou Tangara. 4. Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mr. Sidi Keta. 5. Minister of Defense, Mr. Serigne Modu Njai. 6. Minister of Interior, Mr. Siaka Sonko. 7. Minister of Tourism and Culture, Mr. Hamad Ngany Kumba Ba. 8. Minister of Lands, Regional Government and Religious Affairs, Mr. Abba Sanya. 9. Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Demba Sabali. 10. Minister of Transport, Works and Infrastructure, Mr. Ibrahima Silla. 11th. Minister of Health, Dr. Amadou Lamin Samate. 12. Minister of Basic and Secondary Education, Mrs. Claudiana Cole. 13. Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Mrs. Fatou Kinte. 14. Minister of Petroleum and Energy, Mr. Abdoulaye Diop. 15. Minister of Fisheries and Water Resources, Mr. Musa S. Drame. 16. Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Professor Pierre Gomez. 17. Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, Mrs. Rohi John Manjang. 18. Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Bakari Baji. Honorable Sidi Keta will continue to oversee the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment until the formalization of the appointment of the new minister designate, or of the minister designate. His Excellency the President, acting under Section 71, subsection 1 of the Constitution, has created a new ministerial portfolio in charge of the public service, administrative reform, policy coordination and delivery. The new Minister of the Public Service, Administrative Reform, Policy Coordination and Delivery will have general oversight over the public service and shall work towards the formulation of policy geared towards institutionalizing a culture of discipline, excellence, and accountability in the public service. Furthermore, the new minister shall continuously review the inner workings of the administrative machinery of the government and make proposals for reform to reduce inefficiency and increase output. Finally, the minister shall be in charge or shall be charged with developing frameworks for monitoring the implementation of government policy and for ensuring effective communication and horizontal coordination between ministries.
Meanwhile, Gambians have hailed President Barrow for the appointments to key ministerial positions. This reshuffle ended a long way to usher in a new cabinet following the presidential election last year. As MS Jallo gauged public reaction of the new cabinet, Gambians are challenging the ministers to live up to expectations.
President Adama Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, acting under Section 70, subsection 3, and Section 71, subsection 3.
That was the moment the government spokesperson Ibrahim J. Sankare made the long-awaited announcement of a new cabinet on national television.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, and Gambians Abroad, Dr. Mamadou Tangara.
President Barrow kept Gambians in suspense since he was sworn in for his second term, delaying the appointment of his new cabinet, triggering speculations among the citizenry. But the Gambian leader, acting in accordance with the laws of the land, finally unveiled the new cabinet on Wednesday. And as has always been the case with such appointments, surprises emerge. Dr. Badra Diouf will head Barrow's cabinet as the new vice president, replacing Dr. Aissatou Toure. Sidi Keita is the new finance minister, replacing Mamboure Njie, whilst Dr. Demba Sabali takes over from Ami Fabure as agriculture minister. These were some of the major shakeups in the executive. But what are Gambians saying about the president's pick for his new cabinet?
My personal opinion about the cabinet is it's in the right direction. Because if you look at most of the people that we are reshuffled or the people that we are newly appointed, people that are the appointments are based on expertise and not affiliation. And we want to use this opportunity to react positively and hope that they would really be they will really serve in the interest of the people.
I saw it yesterday around 6. I was very happy that there are some new names in it. Quite honest with you, I don't know what would happen in future, but frankly, this shows a good sign.
Finally, we have a cabinet, people that will work to help President Barrow. And so far, when I looked at the list, I mean, I see it as a very balanced list that is well acceptable in terms of where we want to move on. Overall, I think it's a very, very good selection, I would say.
Optimism in the new cabinet is high, with many hailing the president for choosing competence in some key ministerial positions to leverage political appointments.
I've also seen a balance between the politicians, the very politicians that have been there. Those ones we cannot say anything because the right to appoint is with the president. So we've seen those ones that still they are part of that. But generally, I think if you look at the politicians and the professionals, or what we can term as professionals, it is a very balanced cabinet.
To me, I see he went in for competency because I saw many people that like the lives of Prof. Gomez and other that he included in the cabinet. I know those people are competent because I know that. I'll tell them that there are very many people out there who can do the work. So if they are picked out of those people, they should all work according to the law, and they should also do.
The long-awaited cabinet reshuffle ushers in a new beginning that comes with a huge expectations as Gambians want to see a more vibrant governance structure for more meaningful development. Already, many are calling for the swift action to address the most pressing needs.
It is more about continuity, more about stability in terms of the promises that President Barrow has made. And I think this is an opportunity also to go beyond that. For me, I think the first thing that they need to start thinking about, how do we move this country from where it is? And to start with, for me, it's always about the constitution, that this country needs a new legal framework, that this country needs mechanisms that will help policy to work, in line with our development aspiration. And
across all our ministries, what we lack as a country is policy. When I say policy, it's not only about laws to condemn this, it's internal policies of our offices. That is what is really not surfacing. And then if you want to develop as a country, you really need to have a framework to work by. And then that is what exactly we are lacking. So I think each and every appointed minister at this point should make that a priority. And two, work ethics as well. We really have a problem with ethics as far as our workspace is concerned.
Youth and Sports Minister Bakari Baji retains his position in the cabinet, as well as Hamad Mkeba, who continues to serve as Tourism Minister. Health Minister Dr. Ahmadu Lamin Samate, Justice Minister Dauda Jallo, Basic and Secondary Education's Claudiana Cool, and Fatou Kinte, Minister of Children and Gender, are among those maintaining their cabinet positions, whilst Ibrahim Silla and Musa Drame are redeployed to works and fisheries respectively. Among the new faces are Professor Pierre Gomez, who becomes the new Minister for Higher Education, and Seri Modunjai as Defense Minister, alongside two regional governors in Abassanyang and Rohi John Manjang, who have been elevated to the positions of lands and local governments and forestry respectively, whilst Lamin Queen Jammeh becomes the new Minister for Information.
di waxit ñooñu mu tànn ñu xam ne gënuñoo jàng ci réew mi ëpp ñu fi xam-xam waaye ñu xam ne dañ ne seen xam-xam la ñu nawloo ak yaakaar ba tax président bi tànn leen kon nag ñu ngi leen di ñaanal loolu yàlla bu leen pakk fakkatal yàlla bu leen beew dab.
gars yi daal nañu fas jom ñu góorgóorlu waaw because suñu la falee óolte moo tax ñu fal la waaw duñ la fal ba pare nga nekk sa bopp ak sa jaboot.
President has done his bit by selecting a few out of the lot and entrusting them with the ministerial positions, and Gambians are expecting the new ministers to deliver to expectations. The challenge is now on them to live up to that expectations. Mohamed Estialo, GRS News.
Enhancing health service delivery, the Ministry of Health on Thursday inaugurated the Board of Directors of the National Health Insurance Scheme Authority. The event brought together senior officials of the Health Ministry and members of the board. Speaking at the event, the Minister for Health, Dr. Ahmadu Lamin Samate, said the initiative is part of government's effort to bring quality healthcare delivery to the doorsteps of every Gambian. Famara Baji has the details of the report.
This scheme is set to pay for the health services bills of a person who received health care within the minimum benefit package from a healthcare service provider, contracted under the scheme among other vital areas. The health minister said this has been a key priority of the Barrow government.
Today is another historic day in the life of this country and certainly that of the Ministry of Health. Mr. Chairman, the National Health Insurance Scheme is dear to the heart of the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Mr. Adama Barrow, and to all of us, because he has been very concerned about the out-of-pocket expenditure of the citizenry, and from inception of his government, he had declared his unflinching commitment to ensure that the people of this country get the best health care at no cost, or at worst at very minimal cost. And this is the step in that direction.
The cost of health care has been a major challenge for average Gambians. If this scheme works right, that could become a thing of the past.
I wish to reiterate that this great initiative of introducing the National Health Insurance Scheme in the Gambia is conceived by the government to ensure that out-of-pocket expenditure on health is eliminated or reduced to the barest minimum through robust financial risk management mechanisms. This will undoubtedly increase access to quality healthcare services, by extension provide overall health system strengthening for better service delivery.
This group of technocrats, in consultation with the Ministry of Health, are tasked to work on several key areas.
Mr. Chairman, the board must ensure that the authority performs its functions effectively and efficiently. The board must oversee the implementation of the authority's plans, ensure accountability, efficiency, and financial prudence in all its activities. The board will also be expected to approve the corporate plans, budget, and manage the implementation and execution of all functions of the authority.
Facilities for delivery of healthcare services. Here we need to look at the health system in totality. This in terms of the availability of medicines, supplies, staffing issues, equipment, and the environment and infrastructure of the facilities. This therefore calls for new ways, for example, to manage our drugs and logistics systems. The way we procure our drugs, for example, the way we store them, the way facilities make acquisitions for them, for supplies, and the way they are distributed.
The National Health Insurance Scheme Bill 2021 has been passed by the National Assembly. The scheme, if available, will reduce out-of-pocket expenditure on the health of communities and families. Authorities say the World Bank and the Gambia government will put the needful in place for the successful implementation of the National Health Insurance Scheme. Farmer Abaji, GRTS News.
The Transitional Justice Working Group on Thursday presented the SADU White Paper recommendations on the TRRC report to the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Daud Jallo. The civil society SADU White Paper is developed by the CSO's thematic working group on transitional justice, as Senabu Jani reports. A press conference was later held at the Memory House in Kanifing, where officials updated the public on findings and position of civil society on the TRRC report.
The CSO Transitional Justice Working Group is one of the 4 thematic working groups of Tango, supported by Freedom House through promoting rights and justice activity in the Gambia with funding from US aid. The chair for the Transitional Justice Working Group, Fatou Balde, MBE, handed over the CSO's shadow white paper to the Minister of Justice at a gathering attended by his team and members of the CSO TJ Working Group. The Attorney General and Minister for Justice thanked the group for mobilizing such efforts in producing such a shadow white paper.
The fact that you thought it prudent to mobilize yourself into a group and carry out such a great work to contribute and complement government in the development of the white paper is commendable. It's the primary responsibility of government to come up with a white paper. But why do we have civil society? Civil society is there to complement government's efforts. So, and he who feels it knows it. You're working directly with victims, and to have the victim's perspective in the white paper is very crucial, because from our point of view at Ministry of Justice, the post-TRRC interventions are all going to be victim the issues of victims will take a center stage in whatever we are going to do.
In a separate engagement, the CSO Working Group also convened a press conference at the Memory House in Kanifing to update the public on the progress of the Shadow White Paper, as well as its consultations with the victims. The chair of the Transitional Justice Working Group explains.
And as we all know, civil society plays an influential role in what happens next within the TRRC process. And as we know also, transitional justice looks not just what happened within that time frame that the TRRC was looking at. It gives us an opportunity to look within our society, within our context, some of the socio-cultural factors that subjected Gambia to 22 years of dictatorship. The reason why Gambia became entrenched in such a state for 22 years. This is a role that civil society can also take on and go into the communities. The government has a responsibility, but civil society also has a role. And in the Gambia, we have taken our role seriously. And as people know that throughout the TRRC process, we've been engaging with the Truth Commission to support the process, but also we've been providing support to victims.
This detailed and informative shadow white paper was consulted by co-founder and senior technical advisor, Women's Association for Victims Empowerment, Priscilla Yago-Sise, ESQ, as she spoke at length on the context of the paper.
As you all know, victims' voices are really important in every transitional justice process. Victims remain at the driving seat because it's about them. Primarily, it's about their issues, their life, and what they would like to see in contributing to taking the nation forward as part of their own healing process, as part of issues relating to reconciliation, what drives their quest for reparation, memorialization, and different components of the TJ process. And this is what the consultations provided an opportunity to get victims' perspectives on those issues and much more.
As Partners in Justice, country representative for African Network Against Extrajudicial Killings and Enforced Disappearances, Sirendo, explained that the Victims' Bill will incorporate reparations to support the victims recuperate.
But one of the areas that the government is actually working on in terms of bridging the gap and making sure that things are not at a standstill is what is called, what they have put out there, the Victims' Bill. You guys might have heard about the Victims' Bill, which is a kind of a successor body that is taking over the reparations element of the TRRC. So that is one element of the process that the government is pushing along as they're working on the other elements. So not everything is at a standstill.
Zainabu Janjani for GRTS News.
The Gambian National Commission for UNESCO, in collaboration with the National Center for Arts and Culture, on Thursday organized a press briefing in Banjul as part of events marking African World Heritage Day. May 5th is set aside by UNESCO to celebrate the unique cultural and natural heritage of Africa. As Alajimbai reports, the day will be celebrated with series of sensitizations in communities and schools on the significance of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the Gambia.
Held on the theme African Heritage as a Source for Humanity, Innovation and Resilience, African World Heritage Day, according to the Senior Program Officer at the Gambia National Commission for UNESCO, Lamin Jaju, provides an opportunity for people around the world, particularly Africans, to celebrate the continent's unique cultural and natural heritage, and as well raise awareness on the immense potential of the African culture.
You all know we have facing a big challenge in the with climate change, armed conflicts, and among some of the challenges that pose threats to heritage on our continent, but also throughout the world. African countries must ensure that their remarkable heritage is able to adapt and thrive in today's environment.
According to Mr. Jaju, the day will be celebrated with series of community and school engagement activities aimed at sensitizing the public on the significance of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the Gambia.
We are marking the African World Heritage Day with a series of community and school-based activities that is aimed at sensitizing the public about the significance and potential of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which the Gambia has two, as alluded to by our museum's director. Kunta Kinte Island and related sites, and stone circles of the Senegambia. Our local theme for this year's celebration is schools, communities, community guides, teachers, and UNESCO World Heritage, a useful discussion.
The Deputy Director of Museums and Monuments at the National Center for Arts and Culture, Mohamed Salah, discussed the importance of World Heritage in peace building and development.
The Gambia therefore boasts of the numerous World Heritage properties which have the potential to strengthen humanities through forging closer ties between communities to nurture and sustain peace and tranquility. The World Heritage Sites are a place of reflection for better of the community through skills acquisition, reconciliation, and education. Through the World Heritage Site, we can support youth to innovate and therefore makes the sites even more relevant to the needs and the aspiring of the host communities.
UNESCO and NCAC representatives called for concerted efforts in protecting and promoting World Heritage Sites in the Gambia and on the African continent amid threats such as climate change, uncontrolled development, poaching, civil unrest, and instability. Alajimbai, GRTS News.
Now, in preparation of the 2022 pilgrimage to Mecca for the Hajj, the National Hajj Commission wishes to inform the general public that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has approved Hajj for international pilgrims this year, but with limitations. According to the release, the number of would-be pilgrims has been reduced for all countries, including the Gambia. However, the quota allocated to the Gambia is only 905 pilgrims for this year. The Commission therefore advised all intending pilgrims who paid a deposit to contact their agents for necessary advice and guidelines as soon as possible. You can contact any of the 9 operators that have been duly authorized to uplift pilgrims from the Gambia to the Holy Land: Gambia International Airlines, Banjul Travel Agency, Tiwawon Travel and Tours, Orbit Travel Agency, Travel Express Agency, Amana Travel and Tours, Maya Global Travel, and Continental Crossbreed Travel and Tours, as well as Al Ghazimu Travel Agency. According to the release, some intending pilgrims would be able to perform Hajj this year due to the limited quota allocated to the Gambia. The Commission is seeking the understanding of the general public in that regard as the world is waking up from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Saudi authorities have given guidelines for all countries to be served. Ages above 65 years are restricted for this year. COVID-19 and yellow fever vaccination cards are required. PCR negative tests within 72 hours before arrival to the kingdom also is a requirement. National Hajj Commission is thereby wishing all would-be pilgrims and operators a successful 2022 Hajj. The release concludes. And you're watching GRTS News with me, Rohibite. We will take a quick break and return with sports. Do stay.
Hello, Sister Nya here, and today we are doing the unboxing of the AfriCell 4G LTE CPE router. Have you gotten yours yet? Here it is. All right, now let's do the unboxing of the AfriCell 4G CPE router. I do love the sound of opening new stuff. And this right here is a beauty. What you don't know is it also takes you for an extra 6 hours of charge when there's no power. No power, no problem. Get your CPE routers now at your nearest AfriCell outlet and thank me later.
Welcome back. And in sports, the jersey that Argentina football legend Diego Maradona wore while scoring twice against England in the 1986 World Cup, including the infamous hand of God goal, was auctioned for $9.3 million, a record for any item of sports memorabilia. Maradona, regarded by many as the greatest player of all time, died of a heart attack in November 2020, aged 60. We have more in this Franz Venkat report.
It's an iconic piece of kit that has marked a new auction record for sports memorabilia. The shirt worn by football legend Diego Maradona when he scored 2 of the most memorable goals in history sold on Wednesday for €8.5 million at Sotheby's. In his number 10 jersey, the Argentinian scored twice against England in the 1986 World Cup, including his infamous Hand of God goal.
To have a shirt that's tied to 2 such historic moments, for the Hand of God, which was obviously this incredible play, an incredible moment in time, but then also the goal of the century, which happened just 4 minutes later. To have a shirt that was worn by Diego Maradona, who many consider to be the greatest to ever play, it's really an honor.
The shirt was put up for sale by former England player Steve Hajj, who unintentionally caused the Hand of God moment, who said he swapped it with Maradona after the game 36 years ago. Sotheby's have stated that the buyer of the shirt remains anonymous. Widely regarded as one of the world's greatest footballers, Maradona died aged 60 in November 2020. It's an iconic piece of kit that has...
Well, from sports there, we'll take another quick break and return with internationals. Do stay. Welcome back. On the international, the economics on the continent most prepare for the next pandemic. Bill Gates, the co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, reckons the worst of the COVID pandemic is over, but a global approach is needed to prepare for the next pandemic. More in the CGTN report.
And the next one, when it comes, could be a lot worse because the death rate here was like 0.3% across all age groups. Now, 95% of that was focused on people over 50. So, for example, fire is the one that most people understand because they see fire hydrants, they see fire departments, they often engage in training about safe practices if a fire alarm goes off. And, over time, the deaths from fires has gone way down, even though historically you had entire cities that would go up in flames. So, the key there is full-time people and practice. I mean, they have some okay tools like ladder trucks and axes and all of those fire hydrants, but it's the alertness and the drills that take place. And, that's why when I look at Australia doing so well, partly the scare of the SARS-CoV-1 made them think, okay, we have to get diagnostics quickly, and that means working with these commercial diagnostics companies with these big PCR machines. And so by doing that and putting the right quarantine policies in place, they saved a lot of Australians' lives, 90% of who would have died if they'd been like, say, the United States. It is tricky, as you say, because it's got to be global. And, who's in a position to help make this happen? Well, hopefully politicians realize that no country can protect itself. That is, there's enough international commerce that, it will spread and affect the world. Maybe 50% of the risk of an emergence comes off.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is raising the threat of global hunger as the two countries are major suppliers of wheat and cooking oil. This comes as part of East Africa is experiencing the worst drought in 40 years, and South Sudan has been hit by severe flooding. 8 organizations warn of catastrophe if urgent action isn't taken. Details in this report.
Garden is flooded. She tries desperately to rebuild her small embankment. In her village, Paguir, residents have built canoes to move themselves around. As their cattle perish in the floodwaters, it's the 3rd year in a row that they've had to fight the effects of heavy flooding.
The water's taken everything from me. My land, my home, my food was swept away. The floods came 2 years ago. Since then, we've lived in water. We try our best, but the water beats us.
A large part of South Sudan has been hit by the worst flooding in 60 years. Nearly 1 million people are suffering the consequences. The catastrophe has hit a country in which millions are starving and impoverished. South Sudan has the highest poverty rate in the world. 80% of people live on less than $2 a day. Now, food prices are rising. Grain comes from neighbouring countries who themselves import wheat from Russia and Ukraine. Years of armed conflict have meant that very few crops are grown in South Sudan. It's almost totally dependent on imports, and it's often lowest in the food chain.
We're witnessing the worst hunger crisis to date in South Sudan. Over 8 million people are extremely hungry, and this includes tens of thousands of people who could starve if we're unable to reach them with food assistance. We're seeing people's resilience fading in the face of the ongoing conflict, the floods, and rising food prices.
Food packages from aid organisations are reaching only a fraction of South Sudan's 12 million people, many of whom are in great need as the rainy season begins again.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres supports the reintegration of former insurgents into the society to foster peace. But why has this method been unsuccessful before on the African continent? Wole Ojawale, Regional Organized Crime Observatory Coordinator for Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies, ISS, spoke to CGTN Africa.
Factors that will not make the DDR to be successful. And the number one thing is the fact that in most of those places where you have mentioned, they are foreign imposed ideas that are probably not rooted in community buy-in, community factors, local factors being factored into the development of those programs. That is the number one thing. The second thing is that who are the people who are the helm of affairs of operating or implementing those programs? Most of the times they are military-centric. Whereas when you want to do reintegration, it has to be an holistic approach, wherein you bring in community people, religious people, government agencies, psychologists, sociologists, all kinds of professionals who we have one or two things to input into the implementation. And the number three thing is funding. DDR reintegration is a cost, it attracts a lot of financial implications, which most of the times governments are really interested in putting the required funding to back it up. Continental level, as far back as 1992, when the African Union was still OAU, there is a counter-terrorism strategy which span up until present date, and it has been reviewed over time. At the regional level, ECOWAS also has its own framework, its strategy, which it is expected that nations will factor in when they want to develop their counter-terrorism program. I also believe same is applicable in East Africa or even in South Africa, where we're having the issue in Cabo Delgado now. But like I said, what is very, very important is that it has to be locally built, it has to be locally generated, and then the people need to input into the development of the program. And the number one thing that is now on the front burner now is the issue of transitional justice. You can't just integrate people who have committed a violent crime against the people into the community without first going ahead to prepare the people that are actually going to receive them in the community. And I think broad-based now, that is the reason why most nations that are troubled by terrorism are now looking in the direction of transitional justice, which helps the people to be able to receive them. And probably for the people who have committed the crime as well to be able to serve some form of punishment so that it doesn't look like probably you think you can just go scot-free having committed such violent crime against the people.
And that's it for now, but a quick look at our top stories once again. President Adama Barrow has reshuffled his cabinet and appointed former Higher Education Minister Badara Diouf as Vice President, replacing Dr. Aissatou Touré. Enhancing health service delivery, the Ministry of Health inaugurated the Board of Directors of the National Health Insurance Scheme Authority. And the Transitional Justice Working Group on Thursday presented the SADO White Paper recommendations on the TRRC report to the Attorney General and Minister for Justice. In the internationals, Bill Gates said the world needs to prepare for the next pandemic, and war in Ukraine has exacerbated global hunger as the two countries are major suppliers of wheat and cooking oil. And that's it for this hour. Thanks for the pleasure of your company, and I'll be back at 2200 hours for more news and update. Until then, goodbye.
Chicken is arguably everyone's favorite meat. It's affordable, healthy, and nutritious, and a complete protein. Chicken contains vitamin B12, which helps your nervous system function properly. Chicken also helps to build muscles, strengthen bones, and promotes a healthy heart. American poultry products are free of growth hormones, which will put consumers' minds at ease. Look for American poultry products when purchasing your chicken in the Gambia. Tyson, Purdue, Pilgrims, Sanderson Farms, Koch, and Golden Phoenix brands are all available at your local market. For more information on where to purchase safe, healthy, and nutritious American poultry, please contact GAM Foods at 422-2384 or 422-2385. Eat more American poultry. Your body and taste buds will thank you for it.
Hello! There's a new update from your favorite GSM operator, AfriCell.
For all of you that have struggled to buy cash power beyond $7,000, AfriCell has done it again. The limit to buy cash power is now up to $30,000. Oh yes, $30,000.
Buy all the cash power you want from your AfriMoney account by dialing *777#.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
It's an amazing offer. AfriMoney just got way better. The threshold for cash in and cash out on your AfriMoney has been increased.
Where it used to be 10,000 per transaction, now it has been increased to 30,000. Meaning, your AfriMoney account, you can now withdraw and deposit up to $30,000 at once.
Cashing in and out just got 3 times easier. For more info, call 777.
Where AfriCell goes, nobody dares to follow.
This is a GRTS exclusive. This is GRTS special broadcast. Now, following the December 2021 presidential election and the National Assembly elections in April, His Excellency the President of the Republic, Adama Barrow, has constituted a new cabinet to run the affairs of the state. The changes include the restructuring of several key ministries,